Do you hear it? The echoes of the past, the whispers of forgotten truths, fragments of memories lost in the shadows. Welcome to BRAINROT, Echoes, where we bring you stories long buried, unravel mysteries cloaked by time, and guide you through the darkest corners of the mind and the universe. Each video is more than just content. It's an echo resonating deep within, urging you to question, to wonder, to explore. Backend index pointing right, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and join us in listening to the echoes the world tried to silence. Apex predator among the stars. Opening. The towering Vraxian guard's mandibles created a rapid, ticking sound in what passed for laughter among his species. Standing at nearly 10 foot tall, with an exoskeleton that could withstand small arms fire, he certainly had reason to feel confident. The human before him barely reached his thorax, pink and soft, and utterly devoid of natural weapons. "Well, you know what they say about good things in small packages," replied Lieutenant Alex Reeves with a lazy grin, leaning against the corridor wall as if he hadn't just been escorted onto the galaxy's most prestigious military vessel as an ambassador of goodwill, a polite term for a hostage to ensure human cooperation. The Vraxian guard chittered again. "Your species' obsession with meaningless aphorisms won't save you out here, little mammal. The Galactic Concord has been monitoring your barbaric planet for cycles. We know all about your primitive wars, your environmental destruction, your laughable technology." Alex cracked. "And yet you invited us to the party. Must be our charming personalities." A second guard, a hulking Dravk with rippling tentacles and skin that shifted between shades of purple and green, slithered closer. "The Concord doesn't make mistakes, human. Your admission is merely straightforward. Better to keep potential threats where we can see them. Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. Another one of our meaningless aphorisms, by the way." Alex shrugged. The Dravk's skin glowed a dangerous red. "You should learn respect. Many aboard this vessel have never seen a human before, but all have heard the stories of your species' savagery. The only reason you're here is because your planet happens to sit on a valuable hyperspace junction. Nothing more." Alex pushed himself off the wall, rolling his shoulders casually. At 5 feet 10 inches and with an athletic but unremarkable build, he knew he wasn't physically imposing to these aliens. But 20 years in Earth's special forces had taught him that appearances were just that, appearances. "Well, gentlemen, or whatever the appropriate term is, I appreciate the warm welcome, but I was told the ambassador's waiting. Shall we?" The two guards exchanged what might have been disdainful glances, although Alex was still learning to read alien facial expressions, or lack thereof, in the Dravk's case. "This way, human," the Vraxian said, emphasizing the word like it was a particularly amusing joke. "And do try to keep up." As they moved through the gleaming corridors of the Infinite Radiance, the Concord flagship, Alex took careful note of everything. Security checkpoints, surveillance systems, crew rotations, and the locations of what appear to be emergency panels. Old habits died hard, even when he was supposedly here on a diplomatic mission. The ship itself was a marvel of engineering, a city-sized vessel housing representatives from the 27 species that made up the Galactic Concord. Humans, as the newest and least advanced members, were afforded minimal quarters near the outer hull, the equivalent of giving someone a basement apartment next to the garbage chute. "First time off-world?" the Dravk asked, clearly trying to make conversation despite his earlier hostility. "Nope," Alex said. "Really? Your species only achieved faster-than-light travel 8 orbital cycles ago. You've been beyond your system before." Alex smiled. "I didn't say I'd been off-world via official channels." That earned him another series of mandible clicks from the Vraxian. "You expect us to believe humans have secretly mastered interstellar travel before your formal contact with the Concord?" "I don't expect you to believe anything," Alex replied. "But you might want to ask the Trail Merchant Guild about their missing transport ship from 15 years back. Or don't. I'm just making conversation." Before either guard could respond, they arrived at an ornate doorway emblazoned with the spiral emblem of the Concord. 27 stars arranged in an outward pattern, with a conspicuously empty space where Earth would eventually be placed, if they behaved themselves. The ambassador awaits, the Vraxian said, his tone suggesting he hoped Alex would misbehave spectacularly. Do remember that this is a courtesy meeting. The Grand Council doesn't typically receive representatives from probationary species. I'm honored, Alex said, somehow making the word sound anything but. The doors parted with a soft hiss, revealing a chamber that seemed designed specifically to make visitors feel small and insignificant. The ceiling soared at least 30 feet high, with holographic displays of the known galaxy rotating slowly above. The walls were lined with the flags and emblems of Concord member species, and at the far end, seated upon a raised dais, was Ambassador Thexelon of the Caldari, a species renowned for their diplomatic skills and intimidating appearance. Caldari resembled nothing so much as humanoid lions crossed with something vaguely reptilian. Ambassador Thexelon stood nearly 8 feet tall, his mane of quill-like appendages currently a calm blue, though Alex knew they could flush crimson in moments of anger or aggression. Lieutenant Alexander Reeves of Earth, the Vraxian announced, his tone making it clear he found the title inadequate for such a meeting. The ambassador's golden eyes fixed on Alex. Approach, human representative. Alex walked forward, keeping his pace unhurried. Protocol dictated he should lower his gaze, bow at exactly 15 degrees, and wait to be addressed again. Instead, he maintained eye contact, stopped at what he judged to be a conversational distance, and offered a casual, "Ambassador, nice place you got here." A ripple of murmurs spread through the chamber from various aides and officials positioned around the edges. The ambassador's quills shifted slightly toward orange. Surprise, if Alex remembered the briefing correctly. "You do not observe the proper protocols," Thexelon noted, though there was more curiosity than anger in his rumbling voice. "Where I come from, eye contact is a sign of respect. Looking away suggests you've got something to hide." Alex shrugged. "But I'm happy to follow your customs if you prefer. Just thought we might start on equal footing." The quills shifted again, now with hints of green, amusement, interest. "Equal footing," the ambassador repeated as if testing the phrase. An interesting concept from a species that has only just discovered how to travel between stars without killing themselves in the process. "Tell me, Lieutenant Reeves, do you consider yourself equal to the civilizations that have existed for thousands of years longer than your entire recorded history?" Alex smiled. "Well, when you put it like that, it does sound a bit presumptuous. But in my experience, age doesn't always correlate with wisdom. Sometimes it just means you've had longer to get set in your ways." More murmurs, louder this time. Thexelon's quills rippled, colors shifting rapidly before settling back to a diplomatic blue. "You are not what I expected, human." "I get that a lot." The ambassador rose from his seat, and Alex had to fight the instinct to step back as the massive alien towered over him. "The purpose of this meeting was to inform you of the Council's decision regarding Earth's probationary status. Your planet will remain under observation for another 20 cycles before full membership is considered." Alex nodded. That was expected. However, Thexelon continued, "In recognition of certain strategic considerations, we are offering an acceleration program. If Earth can demonstrate its value to the Concord, the probationary period may be shortened." "And how exactly do we demonstrate our value?" Alex asked, already suspecting the answer. "Your military experience is of particular interest. Humans have a unique approach to warfare that some members of the Council believe could be beneficial in our ongoing situation with the Vex Collective." There it was. The real reason Earth had been contacted at all. The Vex, a mysterious species from beyond the galactic arm that had been encroaching on Concord territory for decades. Supposedly, they were the only threat concerning the mighty Concord. "So you want our barbarity after all?" Alex said with a knowing smile, just aiming it in a different direction. Thexelon's quills shifted to a deep purple. "We prefer to think of it as utilizing specialized evolutionary adaptations." "That's a fancy way of saying you want us to fight your war for you." Alex cracked. "Not fight it for us," the ambassador corrected. "Fight it with us." "There is a difference, Lieutenant." Alex took a moment to consider this. It matched intelligence reports from Earth's limited contacts with other species. The Concord wasn't actually the unified, peaceful federation it portrayed itself as. It was riven with internal politics, ancient grudges, and power struggles, all temporarily set aside in the face of the Vex threat. And if we decline this opportunity, the ambassador's quills stilled. Then Earth remains in probationary status for the full 20 cycles, during which time certain restrictions on your development and expansion will remain in place for your own safety, of course. Of course, Alex echoed. And these restrictions would be lifted if we agree to help against the Vex. Some will be modified, yes. Translation: Earth would be allowed to advance, but only in ways that benefited the Concord, particularly militarily. I'll need to consult with my superiors, Alex said, which was diplomat speak for. I need to tell Earth you're trying to use us as cannon fodder. Naturally, Thexelon agreed. You have 3 of your Earth days to provide an initial response. In the meantime, you will be our honored guest aboard the Infinite Radiance. Honored prisoner was more like it, but Alex just smiled. Looking forward to the tour, the ambassador gestured to the guards. Escort Lieutenant Reeves to his quarters. Ensure he has access to appropriate communication channels to contact his government. As Alex turned to leave, Thexelon added, "Oh, and Lieutenant, there will be a gathering of Concord officials this evening. Your presence will be educational for many who have never encountered a human before." "Wouldn't miss it," Alex replied, already calculating how to use the event to gather more intelligence. "I love being the center of attention." The Krex encounter. The gathering turned out to be something between a diplomatic reception and a zoo exhibit. Alex found himself surrounded by curious aliens of various shapes, sizes, and apparent evolutionary backgrounds, all trying, with varying degrees of subtlety, to study the strange human in their midst. Is it true your species still consumes the flesh of other organisms? Asked a floating jellyfish-like creature that had introduced itself as scientific overseer one. "We do," Alex confirmed, taking a deliberate bite of the hors d'oeuvre he'd been assured was compatible with human biology, though many have switched to synthetic alternatives. "Fascinating." Vun's translucent body pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. "And you evolved as persistence predators, correct? Seizing prey until it collapses from exhaustion." "Some anthropologists think so, yes. Yet you appear so fragile," observed another alien. This one a stocky humanoid with metallic-looking skin, a bronth, if Alex remembered correctly. "Appearances can be deceiving," Alex replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Humans are full of surprises." "Like your peculiar emotional responses," said a tall, willowy being with 4 forearms and skin that seemed to shift between solid and translucent. "Your species experiences fear, yet often moves toward danger rather than away. Most irrational." "We call that courage," Alex said, "or stupidity, depending on the outcome." This earned him a round of that strange, chittering laughter that seemed universal among the Concord species, despite their wildly different physiologies. "The human has a sense of humor," announced a particularly large Vraxian who appeared to be some kind of military officer, judging by the insignia on his carapace. "Perhaps there is hope for your species after all." "We do our best," Alex said, sipping the oddly sweet liquid that passed for wine at this gathering. It tasted like someone had dissolved blue cotton candy in rubbing alcohol, but he wasn't about to show any weakness by grimacing. The Vraxian officer studied him with compound eyes that reflected Alex's image back at him in dozens of tiny facets. "I understand you were a warrior on your world. Something like that. Yet you carry no visible weapons or armor. Your skin is exposed, your vital organs unprotected. How did your species survive long enough to develop spaceflight?" Alex grinned. "We're very stubborn." "Stubbornness is not a survival trait," the Vraxian stated flatly. "Depends on the circumstances," Alex countered. "Sometimes, perhaps, dying is the best strategy available." Before the conversation could continue, there was a commotion near the entrance to the Grand Hall. The crowd parted, revealing a new arrival that caused even the largest aliens to step aside respectfully, or perhaps fearfully. The newcomer moved with a fluid grace that belied its massive size. It appeared to be quadrupedal, with a body structure vaguely reminiscent of Earth's big cats, but scaled up to nightmarish proportions. Its hide with a mottled pattern of blacks and deep blues that seemed to shift and ripple with each movement, creating an almost hypnotic effect. 6 eyes, arranged in a pattern that allowed for complete peripheral vision, glowed with an inner amber light. But most impressive, or terrifying, with a double rows of serrated teeth visible when it opened its jaw to emit a low rumbling sound that Alex felt more than heard. "Ah," said Vun, their bioluminescence dimming slightly. "The Krex delegation has arrived." "Krex?" Alex asked, though he already knew the answer from his briefings. "The apex predators of the known galaxy," the Bronth explained, lowering his voice. "Even the Vex fear them. It is said they rarely interact with other species, except through carefully chosen representatives. And yet one decided to attend a cocktail party." Alex raised an eyebrow. "This is unusual. Yes, the Krex serve on the High Council, but rarely appear at social functions." The massive predator's sweeping gaze scanned the room, and Alex could have sworn the temperature dropped several degrees. Then, to his surprise, and the apparent shock of everyone else, those 6 amber eyes fixed directly on him. The Krex began moving in his direction, its powerful limbs carrying it forward with a deliberate, unhurried pace that nonetheless covered ground alarmingly quickly. The crowd scattered before it, conversations dying as it passed. "It appears you've caught someone's attention," murmured the willowy, 4-armed alien, drifting backward. "How interesting." Within moments, Alex found himself alone in a suddenly empty circle of space, the massive Krex stopping just a few feet away. Up close, it was even more impressive, at least 12 feet long from nose to tail, with shoulders that stood higher than Alex's head. Its 6 eyes studied him with an intelligence that was unmistakable and deeply unsettling. Then it spoke, its voice a rumbling bass that seemed to reverberate through Alex's chest cavity. "Human, you are smaller than reports." Alex, drawing on years of diplomatic training and a lifetime of hiding fear behind humor, simply whispered, "Sorry to disappoint. We come in a range of sizes, actually." The Krex's eyes narrowed, and nearby, several aliens gasped at what they clearly saw as suicidal insolence. "You are not afraid," the Krex observed. "It wasn't a question." "I didn't say that," Alex replied honestly. "Just that I'm not showing it." "Big difference." The massive predator made a sound that might have been the Krex equivalent of a chuckle, though it reminded Alex more of distant thunder. "I am Zarkethel, primary voice of the Krex Dominion." Alex bobbed his head slightly. "Alexander Reeves, Earth Special Forces, currently playing diplomat because our actual diplomats were too nervous to come." More gasps from the onlookers, but Zarkethel's reaction was different, a slow blink of all 6 eyes in sequence. "Your honesty is refreshing, human." Most species attempt to impress the Krex with false confidence or obsequious flattery. Would either of those approaches have worked? No. Then I saved us both some time. Zarkethel's massive head tilted slightly. "The Concord speaks of humans as primitive, violent, and undisciplined. Yet they invited your species to join, rather than quarantine your world, as was done with the Morvlak." "Yeah, well," Alex said, taking another sip of his cotton candy alcohol. "Turns out we're sitting on some prime real estate, galactically speaking. And apparently we have some skills the Concord finds useful." "The Vex situation," Zarkethel stated. Alex raised an eyebrow. "You're well-informed." "The Krex are always well-informed, human. It is how we have survived for millennia." Something about the way Zarkethel said it made Alex think there was more to the statement than simple pride. The massive predator seemed to be evaluating him. "The Concord believes humans possess a particular talent for warfare," Zarkethel continued. "This is why you were contacted before your civilization had reached the typical technological threshold for first contact." "That's the working theory," Alex agreed. "Though I'm not sure if we should be flattered or insulted that our most marketable skill is apparently our capacity for violence. It is neither flattering nor insulting. It simply is." Zarkethel's 6 eyes blinked again in that sequential pattern. The Kreks understand predators, human. We respect them. Before Alex could respond, Ambassador Thexalon materialized at his side, quills a nervous yellow-orange. Primary voice Zarkethel, the ambassador said, bowing deeply. We are honored by your presence. I see you've met our human guest. Indeed, the Krex's gaze never left Alex. An enlightening conversation. I hope Lieutenant Reeves has not caused any inconvenience, Thexalon said carefully. Humans are still learning proper interspecies etiquette. On the contrary, Zarkethel rumbled. The human speaks directly. The Kreks appreciate this quality. The ambassador's quills fluttered in apparent relief. Excellent. Perhaps you allow me to introduce you to the hegemony representatives who just arrived. They've been most eager to discuss the Outer Rim trade agreements. For a moment, Alex thought the massive predator might refuse. But then Zarkethel bobbed his head very slightly. Good, he added to Alex. We will speak again, human. Your species interests the Kreks. With that, the enormous alien turned and followed Thexalon, the crowd once again parting before them. As soon as they were out of earshot, the aliens around Alex fired into excited chatter. Unbelievable! Did you see how it spoke to him? A primary voice of the Kreks addressing a probationary species directly. Alex took another sip of his drink, mind racing. The Kreks weren't just any member of the Concord. They were one of the founding species, famous for their military prowess and feared for their unpredictability. And one had to just single them out for attention, which meant either very good news or very bad news for humanity's position in galactic politics. Probably both, knowing his luck. The turning point. 3 days later, Alex found himself escorted not to his scheduled meeting with the diplomatic corps, but to a part of the Infinite Radiance he hadn't been cleared to visit before, the Military Command Center. There's been a change of plans, his Vraxian guard explained with obvious reluctance. The High Command has requested your presence. Any particular reason? Alex asked, though he had his suspicions. It is not my place to speculate on the decisions of High Command, the guard replied stiffly. Right? Very helpful. Thanks. They traveled deeper into the ship, passing through multiple checkpoints where Alex's biometric data was scanned and verified. Whatever was happening, it clearly involved access to sensitive areas of the vessel. Finally, they arrive at a heavily secured door marked with symbols Alex recognized as indicating a restricted military installation. The guard placed his multi-jointed hand on a scanner, spoke several words in his native language, and the massive door slid open with a pneumatic hiss. Enter, he invited Alex. They are waiting. The room beyond was dimly lit and dominated by a large holographic display, showing what appeared to be a star system Alex didn't recognize. Around the display stood several high-ranking Concord military officers. At least that's what he assumed from their ornate armor and the deference shown to them by the technicians operating the display controls. And there, somewhat apart from the others, loomed the massive form of Zarkethel, the Kreks ambassador. Lieutenant Reeves called out a Caldari officer whose quills were a severe military regulation gray. Thank you for joining us. I am Supreme Commander Lavera. Alex approximated the holographic display, highlighting the tension evident in the postures of most of the aliens. Happy to be invited, though I'm a bit confused about why I'm here. Lever's quills rippled. Recent developments have accelerated certain discussions regarding Earth's participation in Concord security operations. What kind of developments? In answer, Levera gestured to the holographic display. The image zoomed in to show a planet orbiting a yellow star, and then further to reveal what appeared to be a massive space station in orbit, or rather, what remained of one. This was Outpost Kappa 9, a research and early warning station on the edge of Concord space. 3 solar cycles ago, it went silent. When our investigation team arrived, this is what they found. The image shifted again, showing the station from another angle. It had been sheared nearly in half, the edges of the tear smooth as if cut by a giant blade. Bodies of various species floated in the void around it, frozen in the attitudes of their final moments. The Vex? Alex asked, though he already knew the answer. Yes, Lever's voice was grim. Their 5th incursion this cycle, but the first time they've targeted a major installation rather than colony outposts or supply vessels. They're getting bolder, Alex observed. Precisely. The Supreme Commander gave him an appraising look. You understand military strategy, human. This is why you are here. Zarkethel moved forward, his massive form making even the large command center seem crowded. The human should be told everything, Supreme Commander. Lever's quills flattened, a sign of displeasure or dissent, Alex had learned. Primary voice. With all due respect, we have not yet determined if. I have determined it. Zarkethel interrupted, those 6 amber eyes fixed on the Caldari with an intensity that made the commander's quills press even flatter against his skull. The Kreks have made our position clear to the High Council. The human will be informed. A tense silence followed, during which Alex got the distinct impression he was watching an internal Concord power struggle play out in real time. Finally, Levera inclined his head in acquiescence. Very well. The commander turned back to Alex. Lieutenant Reeves, what I'm about to share is classified at the highest level. If your planet agrees to assist the Concord against the Vex, you will be among the first humans granted access to this information. I'm listening, Alex said, keeping his expression neutral despite his growing curiosity. Levera gestured, and the holographic display changed again, this time showing what appeared to be a biological sample, a piece of tissue unlike anything Alex had ever seen. It seemed to shift between states of matter, sometimes appearing solid, sometimes liquid, sometimes something in between. This is a Vex tissue sample, recovered at great cost during their 3rd incursion. The commander's voice had taken on a clinical tone. It has proven resistant to conventional analysis. What we do know is that Vex biology appears to operate on principles entirely alien to any known life form in the galaxy. They're not from around here, Alex summarized. An oversimplification, but essentially correct, Levera agreed. The prevailing theory is that the Vex originated from another galaxy entirely, or perhaps even another dimension. Their technology, their biology, even their basic chemistry defies our understanding, which makes them difficult to fight, Alex guessed. Impossible in some cases, corrected a Bronth officer. Conventional weapons are often ineffective against their vessels. Their warriors can adapt to energy signatures in real time, rendering our most advanced weapons useless after only a few engagements. Alex frowned. So what's been stopping them from overrunning Concord space? The officers exchanged glances, and then all eyes turned to Zarkethel. The Kreks, the massive predator, rumbled. Our physiology is uniquely suited to combating the Vex, and our military doctrine has proven effective where the Concord's more conventional approaches have failed. Now things were starting to make sense. But there aren't enough Kreks to defend the entire Concord, Alex said, thinking aloud. And I'm guessing the Vex are expanding their territory, correct? On both counts, Levera confirmed. Which brings us to humanity. Let me guess, Alex said. Something about our biology or psychology makes you think we might be effective against the Vex too? Zarkethel made that thunderous sound that Alex now recognized as laughing. The human is perceptive, Supreme Commander. As I stated to the Council, Levera's quills fluttered in what might have been irritation before he continued. Our analysis of human historical biology and military doctrine suggests certain parallels with the Kreks that could prove advantageous in conflict with the Vex. What kind of parallels? Alex asked, his eyes shifting between the Caldari commander and the massive Kreks. It was Zarkethel who answered. Adaptability, human. Both our species evolved as apex predators in highly competitive ecosystems. Both developed problem-solving intelligence without predatory instinct. Both understand that survival sometimes requires creative violence. Alex raised an eyebrow. You make us sound like savages. Not savages, the Kreks corrected. Predators. There is a difference. A savage destroys without purpose. A predator kills with precision and necessity. And the peaceful Concord needs predators to fight the Vex, Alex concluded. Yes, Levera admitted. Despite our technological advancement, despite our millennia of cooperation, We find ourselves unprepared for an enemy that does not negotiate, does not surrender, and does not appear to follow any discernible pattern of territorial expansion. Alex studied the holographic display, which had shifted back to showing the destroyed outpost. So this is why Earth was contacted ahead of schedule. Not just because we're sitting on valuable real estate, but because you think we might actually be useful in a fight that's got the rest of the Concord stumped. That is an accurate assessment, the Supreme Commander acknowledged. And the Krex specifically requested human involvement. Alex added, glancing at Zarkethel. What? The massive predator's 6 eyes blinked in that sequential pattern again. Because we recognize what you are, human. Beneath your fragile exterior, beyond your limited technology, at the core of your species, you are hunters, like us. There was almost something like respect in the Krex's rumbling voice, a stark contrast to the mixture of condescension and weariness Alex had encountered from most other Concord species. The High Council has authorized an accelerated integration program, Lavera said. If Earth agrees to contribute to the defense against the Vex, certain technological restrictions will be lifted immediately. Your military personnel will be granted training and equipment equivalent to our standard forces. And in return, Alex asked, though he already knew the answer. In return, humans will join Krex combat teams on the frontier, Zarkethel stated, to determine if our theory is correct. Alex took a moment to process this. The implications were enormous. Earth had been struggling with the technological restrictions imposed by the Concord since first contact. If those were lifted, human advancement would leap forward by centuries. But the cost? How dangerous are these Vex really? He asked. On a scale of minor border skirmish to existential threat to all life as we know it. Lever's quills shifted to a deeply worried purple. We believe they're closer to the latter than the former, Lieutenant. If unchecked, the Vex could potentially overrun Concord space within 50 cycles. And Earth, your world will likely be among the last to fall, given its location, the Supreme Commander said. But fall it will, eventually. Alex nodded slowly. I'll need to present this to my government. They'll have questions. Of course, Lavera agreed. You will be provided with all the relevant data that can be safely shared at this stage. Your communication systems are being upgraded as we speak to handle the encrypted transmission. Alex looked at Zarkethel. And what do the Krex get out of this arrangement, besides more cannon fodder, Several of the Concord officers inhaled sharply at his bluntness. But the massive predator simply made that thunderous laughing sound again. Survival, human. The same as you. The Vex are unlike any enemy the Krex have faced in our long history. We do not fear conventional warfare. But the Vex, there's something else entirely. If our species must ally to ensure survival, then so be it. There was something Alex found oddly reassuring about the Krex's pragmatism. No flowery diplomatic language. No pretense of noble sacrifice, just a clear-eyed assessment of mutual benefit. I'll convey all this to Earth, he said finally. But I can tell you now, they'll want concrete proof that this threat is real, and that humans would actually make a difference. Zarkethel and Lavera exchanged glances. We anticipated this response, the Supreme Commander said, which is why we are prepared to offer a demonstration. What kind of demonstration? Zarkethel's massive head slightly lowered, bringing those amber eyes level with Alex's. You human, you will accompany a Krex combat team to the edge of Vex territory. You will observe firsthand what we face. And perhaps you will show us if humans truly are the predators we believe you to be. The hunt. 2 days later, Alex found himself aboard the Silent Hunter, a Krex military vessel that made the imposing Infinite Radiance look like a luxury cruise ship by comparison. Where the Concord flagship was all gleaming metal and elegant design, the Krex ship was dark, angular, and utterly utilitarian, a weapon given form rather than a vessel designed for comfort. Your quarters, growled Krexville, the Krex officer assigned as Alex's liaison. Like all Krex, Krexville was massively intimidating and seemingly perpetually amused by the human's presence. The quarters were little more than a small chamber with a sleep platform designed for a being twice Alex's size. There were no decorations, no amenities beyond the absolute necessity, and everything was built to withstand extreme force, as if the Kreks expected combat might break out anywhere at any time. "Cozy," Alex commented, dropping his small duffel of personal effects on the platform. "Does it come with room service?" Krexville's 6 eyes blinked in that now familiar sequential pattern. "You will eat with the hunt pack, human. 3 cycles per solar rotation. Do not be late, or you will not eat." "Got it. When do I meet this hunt pack?" Without further explanation, Krexville turned and patted away on massive paws, clearly expecting Alex to follow. The corridors of the Silent Hunter were dimly lit by strips of bioluminescent material that gave off a bluish glow, just enough light for navigation, but dark enough to make Alex suspect the Kreks had excellent night vision. The ship's interior temperature was also noticeably cooler than the Concorde vessel, and the air had a faint metallic tang that tickled the back of his throat. They passed several Kreks crew members, each of whom paused to study Alex with those unsettling 6-eyed gazes. None showed the hostility or condescension he'd experienced from most Concorde species, but neither were they particularly welcoming. They seemed to be evaluating like scientists observing a new specimen. Finally, they arrived at a large chamber that Alex immediately recognized as some kind of training or combat preparation area. The walls were lined with weapons of various designs, some alien, others completely recognizable. The floor was padded but showed signs of heavy use, with tears and scorch marks visible even in the dim lighting. And in the center of the room stood 5 Kreks warriors, each as imposing as Krexville, though with subtle variations in coloration and size. "Hunt Pack Schrichter," Krexville announced. "This is the human, Lieutenant Alexander Reeves. By command of Primary Voice Zarkethel, he will accompany you on the next hunt." The 5 massive predators turned as one to examine Alex, their amber eyes gleaming in the dim light. The largest of them, with midnight blue markings that seemed to absorb rather than reflect the bioluminescent lighting, stepped forward. "I am Schrichter, Hunt Leader," he rumbled, his voice even deeper than Zarkethel's. "These are my pack: Vexner, Krellick, Zerval, and Mordith." Each Kreks inclined their massive heads slightly as they were introduced. "Alex Reeves, Earth Special Forces. I appreciate you allowing me to join your mission." Schrichter made a sound that might have been amusement. "It was not our choice, human. The Primary Voice commands, we obey. But make no mistake, you are here to observe only. The Vex are not prey for untested hunters." "Understood," Alex replied. "I'm just here to learn." The Hunt Leader studied him for a moment longer, those 6 eyes seeming to look straight through him. "We shall see what you learn, human, and what we learn of you." Krexville stepped forward. "The human requires orientation to Kreks combat protocols and basic ship operations. Vexner will handle this." Schrichter decided, indicating the smallest of the Kreks. Though smallest was relative, as Vexner still stood taller than any human Alex had ever met. "We depart in 6 cycles. Be ready, human." With that, the Hunt Leader turned away, clearly considering the conversation over. The other Kreks, save for Vexner, followed suit, returning to what appeared to be a tactical planning session around a 3-dimensional holographic display. Vexner approached Alex with a fluid grace that belied his enormous size. His hide was a mottled pattern of gray and black, with faint silver markings around his eyes. "Come, human," he said, his voice surprisingly soft for a creature his size. "There is much to explain, and limited time." The next several hours were a blur of information as Vexner led Alex through a crash course in Kreks ship operations, combat protocols, and most importantly, what little was known about the Vex. "They do not communicate," Vexner explained as they stood before a display showing recovered Vex technology. "Not in any way we understand. No transmissions, no attempts at negotiation, no response to any form of contact." "Have you tried nonverbal communication?" Alex asked. "Visual signals? Mathematical sequences? That sort of thing." "All approaches have been attempted," Vexner agreed. "The result is always the same. They attack, take what they want. They withdraw. And what do they want?" Vexner's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. That is the greater mystery, human. They harvest certain materials, specific metals, particular isotopes, occasionally biological samples. But there is no consistent pattern that would indicate a resource-driven expansion. So they're not just looking for territory or materials, Alex mused. They're searching for something specific, perhaps. Or perhaps they simply expand because it is their nature. Not all predators hunt only when hungry. Alex nodded thoughtfully. On Earth, we have invasive species introduced to environments where they have no natural predators. They don't expand because they need to. They expand because nothing stops them. An apt comparison, Vexner agreed. And now the Concorde seeks new predators to challenge them. Is that how the Krex see humans? As fellow predators? Vexner made that now familiar rumbling laugh. The Krex see clearly human. Your species lacks our physical strength, our natural weapons, our evolutionary advantages. Yet you dominate your world through intelligence, cooperation, and an unmatched capacity for adapting your environment rather than adapting to it. Those 6 eyes studied Alex intently. Most Concorde species evolved through specialization. The Krex and humans evolved through adaptability. This is a rare trait and valuable against an enemy like the Vex. Before Alex could respond, an alarm sounded, 3 short, deep tones that reverberated through the ship. Pre-jump warning, Vexner explained. We are preparing to enter hyperspace. Return to your quarters and secure yourself. The transition can be uncomfortable for non-Krex physiology. Alex soon discovered this was a massive understatement. The Krex hyperspace drive operated on principles entirely different from the Concorde technology he'd experienced. Rather than the smooth, almost imperceptible transition of Concorde vessels, the Krex ship seemed to tear its way into hyperspace with brute force. The sensation was like being simultaneously compressed to the size of a pinhead and stretched across infinite distance. For several agonizing seconds, Alex felt as if every atom in his body was screaming in protest. Then, just as suddenly, the feeling passed, leaving him gasping on the floor of his quarters, having somehow fallen from the sleeping platform. Adaptation begins, came Schrichter's voice over the ship's communication system, a hint of what might have been sadistic amusement coloring his rumbling tones. Report to the command center in 1 cycle, human, if you can walk. More than anything else, pride got Alex to his feet. His muscles ached as if he'd run a marathon, and a dull throb had taken up residence behind his eyes, but he'd be damned if he'd show weakness to the Krex, not when they were clearly evaluating his species' worth as allies. By the time he made his way to the command center, a circular chamber dominated by holographic displays showing the swirling chaos of hyperspace. The worst of the effects had faded to a moderate discomfort. The human survives, observed Mordith, the bulkiest of the hunt pack. His hide was a patchwork of deep browns and blacks. Impressive. Humans are surprisingly resilient, Alex replied, trying to keep his voice steady. We bounce back quickly. A useful trait for what lies ahead, Schrichter said from his position at what appeared to be the primary control interface. We approach the edge of Vex territory. Our mission is reconnaissance only. Observe, record, and withdraw without engagement if possible. And if not possible, Alex asked. The hunt leader's massive jaws parted in what could only be described as a predatory grin, revealing those double rows of serrated teeth. Then we hunt. The ship dropped out of hyperspace with another reality-bending lurch that sent Alex staggering against a bulkhead. The holographic displays shifted to show real space, a sparse starfield with a distant red dwarf at its center. Sector 447 Gamma, Vexner announced. Last reported Vex activity 17 cycles ago. Outpost Sigma 12 went dark after unusual energy signatures in the system. Passive scans only, Schrichter commanded. Minimal power emissions. We drift and listen. For the next several hours, the Silent Hunter lived up to its name, gliding through the outer reaches of the system with all non-essential systems powered down. The Krex moved about their duties with a silent efficiency that impressed even Alex, who had worked with some of Earth's most elite Special Forces units. Nothing reported, said Krellick, a slender Krex with unusual silver-gray markings who appeared to be responsible for sensor operations. The system appears abandoned. Continue scanning, Schrichter commanded. The Vex leave traces if one knows where to look. Another hour passed in tense silence. Alex found himself studying the Krex as much as the sensor readings. Despite their fearsome appearance and predatory nature, they operated with a discipline and precision that rivaled any military unit he'd ever encountered. Each knew their role, each performed their tasks without unnecessary communication, and all deferred to Schrichter without question. It was Zerval, the most reserved of the hunt pack, who finally broke the silence. "Hunt leader," he called, his voice barely above a whisper despite the apparent absence of any threat. Anomalous radiation pattern detected near the fourth planetary body. Schrichter moved to the sensor display, his massive form somehow managing to move without making a sound. Magnify. The holographic display zoomed in on a small, rocky world orbiting at the edge of the system's habitable zone. Something was orbiting the planet, something that didn't reflect light quite right, as if it absorbed certain wavelengths while bending others around it. Vex scout vessel, Schrichter confirmed. Recently arrived, judging by the radiation trail. Searching for the same thing we are, Alex suggested. The hunt leader's 6 eyes shifted to him. Perhaps, or perhaps they are the bait. Alex frowned. You think it's a trap? The Vex do not think as we do, human, but they learn. They adapt. They have encountered Krex hunt packs before. So what's the play? Schrichter seemed to consider the question, his massive head tilted slightly. We continue as planned. Observation. But we adjust our approach. Vexner, bring us in along the system's ecliptic plane. Minimal thrust, maximum sensor dispersion. The silent hunter began to move again, this time on a curved trajectory that would bring them closer to the fourth planet while keeping the system's star at their backs, reducing their visibility against its glare. As they approached, the sensor displays revealed more detail about the Vex vessel. It was smaller than the Silent Hunter, with an organic, asymmetrical design that reminded Alex of deep-sea creatures from Earth's oceans. All curves and unexplained protuberances that seemed to shift and ripple even as they watched. It's changing shape, Alex observed. All Vex technology does this, Vexner explained quietly. It adapts to its environment, to threats, to opportunities. Like the Vex themselves. What's it doing? Scanning, Krellick replied. The emissions pattern suggests a deep planetary survey, looking for something specific, something valuable enough to send a scout this far into troubled space, Schrichter mused. Or someone, Alex suggested. Could they be tracking the outpost survivors? The Krex exchanged glances, and Alex got the distinct impression he'd said something they hadn't considered. Possible, Schrichter acknowledged. The Vex have shown interest in capturing live specimens of various species. For study. For purposes unknown, the hunt leader corrected. None have ever been recovered alive. A chilling thought, but before Alex could pursue it further, the sensor displays lit up with new information. Energy spike, Krellick announced. All pretense of quiet forgotten. The Vex vessel is activating its main drive. Evasive action, Schrichter commanded, but his tone remained calm. They have not detected us yet. They are merely... He never finished the sentence. The Vex ship suddenly seemed to fold in on itself, collapsing into a point of intense light before disappearing entirely. What the hell was that? Alex demanded. Some kind of self-destruct? No, Vexner said, his voice tight. Short-range translocation. They can move instantaneously across limited distances without entering hyperspace. Then where did they? The ship rocked violently as something struck its hull, sending Alex sprawling across the command center. Alarm tones sounded throughout the vessel, and the lighting shifted to a deep red. Direct hit, aft section, Mordith reported, his massive claws jumping across a control panel. Shield integrity at 70%. They're behind us. Alex realized. They jumped behind us. Battle stations, Schrichter ordered, his voice still unervingly calm. Activate all defensive systems. Krellick, prepare countermeasures. Vexner, evasive pattern corrects 7. The Silent Hunter surged forward, its engines roaring to full power as it executed a series of maneuvers that would have torn apart most vessels Alex had encountered. The inertial compensator struggled to keep up, and he found himself clinging to a support strut to avoid being thrown across the room again. Return fire? Zerval asked, already positioned at what appeared to be the weapons control station. Negative, Schrichter replied. This is not our hunt today. Prepare, jump coordinates. Another impact rocked the ship, this one more powerful than the first. Shield integrity at 40%. Mordiv called out. They're targeting our drive systems. They wish to capture, not destroy. Interestingly, Schrichter observed. Alex climbed, pulling himself along the wall towards an unoccupied monitoring station. Mind if I take a look at their attack pattern? Schrichter looked at him, those 6 eyes narrowing slightly. Granted, the display showed the Vex vessel's position relative to the Silent Hunter. It was executing a series of short-range jumps, appearing in different positions around the Krek's ship, firing, then disappearing again before countermeasures could target it. It's not random, Alex realized, studying the pattern. There's a sequence to the jumps. They're working through a predetermined attack pattern. Vexner moved to his side, those 6 eyes studying the display. The human is correct. There is a pattern. If it's a pattern, we can predict it, Alex continued. We can be waiting for them at the next jump point. Schrichter's massive head swung towards him. You propose we fight rather than withdraw? I propose we bloody their nose before we leave, Alex clarified. Show them we're not easy prey. For a moment, the hunt leader was silent, those predatory eyes fixed on Alex with an intensity that would have made most humans flinch. Then, to Alex's surprise, Schrichter made that rumbling sound of Krek's laughter. The human thinks like Krex, he announced to the hunt pack. Zerval, weapons online. Krellick, analyze the jump pattern and predict the next 3 coordinates. The next few minutes were a flurry of activity as the Krex executed Alex's plan. Krellick fed the pattern data into the ship's tactical systems, producing a series of projected coordinates where the Vex vessel might appear next. 87% probability, the sensor operator announced. Next appearance in 3, 2, 1. Fire, Schrichter commanded. The Silent Hunter's weapons discharged at seemingly empty space, and then the Vex ship materialized directly in the path of the energy barrage. The impact was immediate and devastating. The alien vessel's outer hull rippled and distorted as the Krek's weapons tore into it. Direct hit, Zerval confirmed. Their defensive systems are attempting to adapt, but the damage is significant. Again, Schrichter ordered. Next coordinate. They repeated the process twice more, each time catching the Vex ship as it appeared, until finally the alien vessel ceased its attack pattern and began to withdraw, its once sleek form now misshapen and leaking what appeared to be a luminescent fluid into space. They retreated, Mordeth observed. A victory for the hunt pack. A tactical withdrawal, Schrichter corrected. They will return with greater numbers and adapted defenses. He turned to Alex. But you have given us valuable data, human. The Vex operate according to mathematical principles, even when they appear random. This knowledge will serve the Krex well. Alex shrugged, trying to ignore the pounding of his heart and the adrenaline coursing through his system. Just doing my job, adapting to the situation. Indeed, the hunt leader bobbed his head slightly. Perhaps there is more predator in your species than the Concord believes. Jump coordinates set, Vexner reported. Ready to withdraw on your command. Proceed, Schrichter ordered. Our mission is complete. We have observed. We have gathered data. And we have tested the enemy. The Council will be interested in our findings. As the Silent Hunter prepared to jump to hyperspace, Alex found himself the focus of attention from the entire hunt pack. Their earlier dismissiveness had been replaced by something that, if he didn't know better, he might have called respect. Prepare yourself, human, Vexner warned as the hyperdrive began to power up. The return journey will be no less uncomfortable. Alex braced himself against the nearest support. Worth it for the data we collected. And for the look on that Vex ship's, well, whatever they have instead of face. The Kreks made their rumbling, laughing sounds in unison, and then reality twisted itself inside out once more as the ship tore its way into hyperspace. Facing the High Council, the journey back to Concord space took 3 days, during which Alex found himself gradually integrated into the Hunt Pack's activities. He was invited to join their tactical discussions, included in their training exercises, though mostly as an observer. Krek's physical training would have pulverized a human, and even welcomed at their communal meals. It was during one such meal that Schrichter finally asked the question Alex had been expecting since their encounter with the Vex. "You have military experience beyond what your rank suggests?" The Hunt leader observed as they consumed what the Kreks considered a light snack, some kind of synthetic protein that tasted to Alex like overcooked beef jerky mixed with seaweed. "What makes you say that?" Alex asked, though he already knew the answer. "Your tactical analysis during the engagement. Your calm under fire. Your understanding of predatory behavior." Schrichter's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. These are not traits of an ordinary soldier, nor of a diplomatic envoy. Alex considered his response carefully. His role and experience were classified, even by Earth standards. But the Kreks had shown him their ship, their tactics, their technology, a gesture of trust that deserved something in return. "Let's just say I've spent most of my career operating in environments where traditional military hierarchies don't apply," he said finally. "Small teams, minimal support, high-risk situations." "A hunter," Vexner supplied from across the table. "Something like that." Schrichter made a sound of satisfaction. "This confirms our assessment of human potential. Your species may lack physical advantages, but you compensate with adaptability and tactical thinking. Some of us," Alex corrected, "others would have panicked in that situation." As with all species, the Hunt leader acknowledged, "Not every Kreks is suited for the Hunt Pack, but enough are to make a difference in war. And you think enough humans are suited for fighting the Vex to make a difference?" "We shall see," Schrichter replied, "but your performance suggests promise." The conversation shifted to other topics, but Alex couldn't shake the feeling that he had just participated in something more significant than a simple reconnaissance mission. The Kreks were evaluating humanity's potential as allies, yes, but also as equals in a way the rest of the Concord clearly did not. By the time they docked with the Infinite Radiance, Alex had formed his own assessment as well. The Kreks were dangerous, unpredictable, and utterly ruthless. But they were also straightforward in a way most of the Concord species were not. They said what they meant. They respected competence irrespective of its source, and they understood the concept of mutual benefit without the need for flowery diplomatic language. In short, they were predators Alex could work with. Ambassador Fexelon was waiting when Alex disembarked, his quills a nervous yellow. "Lieutenant Reeves," he greeted, eyes darting between Alex and the looming form of Schrichter, who had accompanied him off the ship. "We are relieved to see you return safely. I trust your observation mission was productive." "Very," Alex replied. "I've learned a lot about our potential adversaries and our potential allies." "Excellent, excellent," the ambassador said, though his quills continued to flutter anxiously. "The Supreme Commander is eager for your report, and your government has been most insistent about establishing communication." "I'll bet they have," Alex murmured. 3 days was a long time to be out of contact when humanity's future in galactic politics hung in the balance. "The human performed effectively," Schrichter announced, his rumbling voice causing the ambassador's quills to flatten against his skull. "The Kreks' assessment of human potential is positive. We will support expanded cooperation with Earth forces against the Vex threat." Fexelon's quills shifted rapidly through several colors before settling on a diplomatic blue. "That is most encouraging, Hunt leader. The Council will be pleased to hear of your assessment." "The Council will hear my full report directly," Schrichter corrected, "including details of the humans' tactical contribution during our engagement with a Vex scout vessel." "Engagement?" The ambassador's quills went rigid. "The mission parameters specified observation only." Circumstances required adaptation, the Krex stated flatly, a concept the human grasped more readily than many Concord strategists. Before Thexelon could respond, a junior diplomatic aide rushed up to the group, looking flustered. "Ambassador, forgive the interruption, but there's an urgent situation. The primary voice of the Krex Dominion has called an emergency session of the High Council. All senior representatives are required to attend immediately." Thexelon's quills shifted to an alarmed orange. "Zarkethel has called a council session. On what grounds?" "I do not know, Ambassador, but the summons specifically requested the human's presence as well." All eyes turned to Alex, who found himself suddenly at the center of attention he hadn't anticipated. "Me," he asked. "Why would the Krex leadership want me at a High Council meeting?" Schrichter's 6 eyes blinked in that now familiar sequence. "Because, human, you have proven what the Krex suspected, that your species has value beyond what the Concord recognized. And in times of war, such value changes the balance of power." The balance of power. The High Council chamber of the Galactic Concord was designed to impress and intimidate. A vast circular room with tiered seating rising 50 feet into the air, it could accommodate representatives from all 27, soon-to-be 28, member species of the Galactic Concord. The center of the chamber featured a raised platform where speakers could address the council, surrounded by holographic displays that could present evidence or data to all present. Alex found himself standing on that platform, feeling decidedly small and underdressed in his simple Earth military uniform, as he faced the assembled representatives of the most powerful interstellar government known to humanity. At the highest tier sat the 7 founding species representatives, including Zarkethel of the Krex, who loomed over his neighbors with that same predatory intensity Alex had come to recognize in all his species. Looking distinctly uncomfortable with the proximity was Supreme Commander Lavera, representing the Caldari. "This emergency session of the High Council is now convened," announced a willowy being of a species Alex didn't recognize. Primary voice Zarkethel of the Krex Dominion has called this gathering to address matters of urgent security concern. "The floor is yours, primary voice." Zarkethel rose to his full height, those 6 amber eyes sweeping the chamber before settling on Alex. "Esteemed representatives of the Concord," he began, his rumbling voice amplified throughout the chamber. "I have called this session to address the escalating Vex threat and to propose a significant modification to our defensive strategy." Murmurs rippled through the assembled representatives. The Vex were a topic that always generated tension within the Concord, a rare external threat to their carefully maintained stability. 3 solar cycles ago, Zarkethel continued, a Krex hunt encountered and engaged a Vex scout vessel in Sector 447 Gamma. This engagement resulted in significant damage to the Vex vessel and its subsequent withdrawal from the area. More murmurs, louder this time. Alex noted several representatives leaning forward in their seats. What is remarkable about this encounter is not that the Krex were successful. This is expected, but rather the manner in which this success was achieved. Zarkethel's massive head turned toward Alex. The tactical approach that resulted in the Vex vessel's defeat was devised not by the Krex Hunt Pack, but by the human observer who accompanied them. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices, some questioning, others protesting, still others demanding clarification. The willowy moderator had to activate some kind of sonic dampening field to restore order. Primary voice called out a representative from one of the middle tiers, a being with metallic skin that Alex recognized as a member of the Bronze species. "Are you suggesting that a member of a probationary species contributed meaningfully to a tactical victory against the Vex? This strains credibility." "I do not suggest," Zarkethel replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. "I state as fact." Hunt leader Schrichter's report is most specific on this point. Schrichter, who had been standing silently at the edge of the platform, stepped forward and bobbed his massive head in confirmation. The human identified a mathematical pattern in the Vex vessel's translocation sequences, the Hunt leader explained. This insight allowed us to predict their movements and target them at their points of vulnerability. Without this insight, we would have been forced to withdraw under fire rather than forcing the Vex to retreat. Supreme Commander Lavera rose from his seat, his quills a thoughtful gray. This aligns with certain theories our analysts have proposed about Vex behavior patterns. If confirmed, it is an intelligence breakthrough. It is confirmed, Zarkethel stated flatly, and it was achieved through the cooperative efforts of Krex and human. This is the future of our defense against the Vex, a combination of Krex combat prowess and human adaptive thinking. Another representative stood, a draft, his skin shifting between shades of blue and green. While this single incident is interesting, it hardly justifies restructuring our entire defensive strategy. One human's lucky insight does not constitute a pattern. Luck, Schrichter growled, his massive form tensing. The human identified in minutes what your analysts have failed to recognize in years of study. This was not luck, but a fundamentally different approach to problem solving. Alex decided it was time to speak up before this devolved into an interspecies argument. "If I may," he said, his voice sounding small after the rumbling bass of the Krex. "What I observed wasn't particularly special from a human perspective. We evolved to recognize patterns because our survival depends on it. When you're not the strongest or fastest predator, you have to outsmart your competition. And that," Zarkethel declared, "is exactly my point. Humans approach problems from a perspective no other Concord species possesses. Not even the Krex. We are apex predators who evolved to dominate through superior physical strength. Humans are apex predators who evolved to dominate through superior pattern recognition and adaptive problem solving. A complementary approach." Supreme Commander Lavera mused, his quills shifting to a contemplative blue. "The Krex provide the physical force capabilities. The humans provide the tactical insights." "Precisely," Zarkethel agreed, "which is why I am proposing an accelerated integration program for Earth, with immediate lifting of all economic restrictions and the formation of joint Krex-human combat units for deployment against the Vex." The chamber erupted again, this time in even louder protests and exclamations. The sonic dampening field struggled to contain the noise, and the moderator had to increase its intensity before order was restored. "This is unprecedented," objected a Trell representative, their crystalline form glittering with agitation. "No probationary species has ever been granted such privileges without completing the full observation period. No probationary species has ever faced the Vex and emerged victorious," Zarkethel countered. "The circumstances are unprecedented. Therefore, our response must be as well." Ambassador Thexelon rose from his seat, his quills a careful diplomatic blue. "While I appreciate the primary voice's enthusiasm, we must consider the broader implications. Earth is still adapting to interstellar society. Their political systems remain fragmented, their technology largely unproven on a galactic scale. Their political systems are irrelevant," Schrichter growled. "We do not need their politicians. We need their hunters." Alex had to suppress a smile at that. The Krex had a refreshingly direct way of cutting through diplomatic niceties. Supreme Commander Levera's quills rippled thoughtfully. "There is precedent for limited economic sharing under existential threat conditions. The security protocol of the Seventh Conclave does permit acceleration of integration in cases where a species demonstrates unique capabilities relevant to Concord defense. A single incident is hardly proof of unique capabilities," the draft representative objected. "Then let us test them further," Zarkethel proposed. "I offer 10 Krex Hunt packs to be paired with human military units. Let them face the Vex together. If they fail, we withdraw the proposal. If they succeed, the acceleration proceeds." Alex saw his opportunity and seized it. "If I may make a suggestion," he said, drawing all eyes back to him. "Rather than commit to full technological sharing immediately, why not establish a graduated program? Earth provides military personnel for joint operations with the Krex, and in return receives specific technological packages based on performance and demonstrated need. The human negotiates," Zarkethel observed, those 6 eyes blinking in sequence. Good. This suggests your species understands reciprocity. We understand mutual benefit, Alex corrected. Earth wants access to advanced technology, yes. But we also understand the Vex threat is real and affects us all. If we can contribute to stopping them, that serves our interests as well as yours. The council chambers fell silent as the representatives considered this approach. Alex could practically see the political calculations happening behind alien eyes and equivalent sensory organs. This was a compromise that would allow the Concord to maintain control over the pace of technological sharing while still gaining access to human military capabilities. After several moments, Supreme Commander Levera spoke. I believe this represents a reasonable middle path. A trial period with limited technological exchange, expanding based on demonstrated results. The Krex support this approach, Zarkethel declared, provided there are no unnecessary delays or lingering obstacles. The willowy moderator looked around the chamber. Do we have consensus to proceed with a formal vote on this proposal? One by one, the representatives indicated their assent, some more reluctantly than others. Even Ambassador Thexelon eventually nodded, his quills settling into a resignation shade of blue-gray. Very well, the moderator announced. The formal vote will be scheduled for the next full session. In the meantime, a working group will be established to draft the specific parameters of this graduated integration program. As the session began to break up, Zarkethel descended from the high tier, his massive form moving with surprising grace as he came to Alex. You have done well, human, the primary voice rumbled quietly. The council rarely achieves even this level of consensus so quickly. I just offered a compromise they could all live with, Alex replied. Nobody gets everything they want, but everybody gets something they need. A predator understands when to strike and when to stalk, Zarkethel observed. Your species will go far in the Concord, I think. If they let us, Alex said. They will have little choice, the massive Krex rumbled. His 6 amber eyes blinked in sequence. The Vex grow bolder. The Concord grows more fractured in its response. In such times, those who can adapt most quickly will prevail. Alex nodded thoughtfully. Back on Earth, we have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Another of your aphorisms, Zarkethel noted with that rumbling Krex laughter. But not without wisdom. Necessity drives all evolution, after all. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Ambassador Thexelon approached. Lieutenant Reeves, he said, his quills now a carefully neutral shade. I must commend your diplomatic skills. You have managed to achieve in one council session what might otherwise have taken years of negotiation. Just doing my job, Ambassador, Alex replied with a slight smile. Finding common ground. Indeed. Thexelon's eyes darted nervously to Zarkethel before returning to Alex. I should inform you that your government has been briefed on the developments. They are most eager to speak with you directly. I'll bet they are, Alex murmured. Earth's military and political leadership would be having simultaneous heart attacks and celebrations at this unprecedented opportunity. There is one more matter, Zarkethel rumbled. The human should be officially assigned as liaison to the Krex Dominion for the duration of this program. Thexelon's quills fluttered in surprise. That would be highly unusual, primary voice. Lieutenant Reeves was sent as a temporary observer, not a permanent. The human understands predators, Zarkethel interrupted. This is rare among your diplomatic corps, Ambassador. If this alliance is to function effectively, we require someone who speaks our language. Not literally, but conceptually. Thexelon's quills settled into a resignation blue-gray. I will present the request to the diplomatic committee, though I suspect Lieutenant Reeves's own government may have other plans for him now. Let them try to find a better intermediary, the massive Krex rumbled. Those 6 amber eyes fixed on Alex. They will not succeed. Dawn of a new era. 6 months later, Alex stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned ESV Adaptable, Earth's first military vessel built with Concord technology. At just under half a kilometer in length, it was tiny by Concord capital ship standards, but it represented a quantum leap forward for human space capabilities. And it was only the beginning. Impressive, isn't it? Came a familiar voice from behind him. Alex turned to find Admiral Helena Walsh approaching, her uniform adorned with the newly created insignia of the Earth Space Force, a stylized planet with an orbital ring that looked suspiciously like a predator's eye. Very, he agreed. 3 months from keel laying to launch. The shipyard AIs the Concorde provided are miraculous. One of the many benefits of our newly graduated integration program, Walsh said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Though I suspect we have you to thank for more than just the technology transfers. Alex shrugged. I was in the right place at the right time, Admiral. And the Krekks were looking for an excuse to fast-track Earth anyway. So modest, Walsh observed dryly. Your official reports mention a minor tactical contribution during a reconnaissance. The Krekks reports you single-handedly identified a fundamental weakness in Vex combat tactics that had eluded them for years. The Krekks have a flair for the dramatic, Alex said, somewhat surprising given their otherwise direct nature. Perhaps. Walsh moved to stand beside him in the viewport, gazing out at the Earth fleet assembling in high orbit. But dramatic or not, it's opened doors we didn't expect to walk through for decades. In addition to the adaptable, 5 smaller frigates were nearing completion in the orbital shipyards, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. Beyond them, the massive form of a Krekk's dreadnought hung against the starfield, a constant reminder of their new allies' power and of the threat that had brought them together. The first joint combat units deploy next week, Walsh continued. 10 teams of our best special forces operators paired with Krekk's hunt packs, just as you recommended. How are they adapting to working together? Alex asked. Walsh smiled grimly. About as well as can be expected when you pair humans with 12-foot-tall apex predators who consider raw meat a delicacy. There have been incidents, but they're working through them surprisingly well. Both sides seem to recognize the value in the partnership despite the cultural and biological differences. She gave him a sidelong glance. Your training protocols have helped. Focusing on the mutual predatory heritage rather than the obvious differences was inspired. Alex nodded. He'd spent weeks developing the integration program, drawing on his experience with the Krek's Hunt Pack to create a framework that emphasized shared values rather than divergent evolutionary paths. The Vex don't care about our differences, he said. They only care that we're in their way. That gives us common ground to build on. Speaking of the Vex, Walsh said, her tone shifting to something more official. The Security Council has reviewed the latest intelligence. They're escalating their incursions along the Outer Rim. 3 more outposts have gone dark in the past month. They're testing our response, Alex surmised, probing for weaknesses in the new defense strategy. That's the consensus, which brings me to the real reason I'm here. Walsh turned to face him directly. The Joint Earthcrex Command has requested you specifically to oversee the first major counteroffensive. Alex raised an eyebrow. Me? I'm not exactly a fleet commander, Admiral. No, but you understand both sides of this alliance better than anyone else. The Kreks respect you, which is something I never thought I'd say about any human. And our people trust your judgment. She handed him a data tablet. Full colonel's commission in the Earth Space Force, with diplomatic rank equivalent to maintain your liaison status with the Kreks. Alex stared at the tablet, a complex mix of emotions washing over him. 6 months ago, he'd been a Special Forces lieutenant sent on what was essentially a hostage mission to placate the Concorde. Now he was being offered command of humanity's first interstellar military operation. This isn't just about the Vex, is it? He asked quietly. Walsh's expression turned calculating. What do you mean? Earth's position in the Concorde. This accelerated integration. The Krex Alliance. It's changing the balance of power. You're more politically astute than your file suggested, Colonel. Walsh looked around to ensure they were alone on the observation deck. Yes, the implications go beyond the immediate Vex threat. Several of the lower-tier Concorde species have already approached us about separate bilateral agreements. They see which way the wind is blowing. And which way is that? Walsh's voice dropped even lower. The Krex have been unusually forthcoming about internal Concorde politics. It seems they've been waiting for a species like ours for some time, a counterbalance to the more established powers. Someone who thinks differently, but isn't a direct competitor for their niche ecology, Alex mused. Exactly. The Caldari, the Dravk, the Trell, they all evolved in similar environments to the Krex. They compete naturally. Humans don't. We complement. Yes, and in interstellar politics, that makes us valuable allies. Walsh nodded towards the data tablet. So, will you accept the commission? Alex looked back out at the assembled ships. Earth's first true interstellar fleet, born of necessity and opportunity. Beyond them, the stars beckoned, and somewhere out there, the Vex waited. I accept, he said finally. Though, I have one. Walsh raised an eyebrow. You're not really in a position to make demands, Lieutenant. Or should I say, Colonel? It's not a demand, just a request. Alex smiled slightly. I want Schrichter's hunt pack assigned as my direct liaison for the operation. To his surprise, Walsh laughed. Already arranged. The Krex insisted on it. Actually, apparently, you made quite an impression. We understand each other, Alex said simply. Let's hope that understanding translates to battlefield success. The first target has already been selected, a Vex forward operating base in the DEM sector. We believe they're using it as a staging area for further incursions. When do we deploy? 72 hours. Walsh's expression turned serious. This is a watershed moment, Colonel. The first time Earth forces will engage in combat beyond our solar system. The first true test of our alliance with the Krex. And possibly the beginning of humanity's rise to prominence within the Concord. No pressure, then, Alex said dryly. None at all. Walsh offered her hand. Good hunting, Colonel Reeves. As they shook hands, Alex couldn't help but reflect on the strange path that had brought him here. From being mocked for his size by towering aliens to commanding a joint human-Krex strike force. All because he'd seen a pattern where others saw only chaos. Perhaps that was humanity's true strength in this vast, dangerous galaxy. Not our technology, not our military prowess, but our ability to find order in disorder, to adapt to the unexpected, to turn disadvantage into opportunity. The Vex have no idea what they're in for, he murmured, more to himself than to Walsh. Oh, the Admiral urged. Alex smiled, thinking of Zarkethel's words from their first meeting. They're about to learn that not all predators need fangs and claws to be deadly. The counteroffensive. The Vex forward operating base hung in orbit around a barren moon, its twisted organic architecture pulsing with ethereal light that seemed to bend reality around it. From the bridge of the adaptable, it resembled nothing so much as a massive sea creature from Earth's deepest oceans, all tentacles and bulbous protrusions, and unsettling asymmetry. Primary target confirmed, reported Lieutenant Commander Dmitry Volkov, the Adaptable's tactical officer. Vex signatures match intelligence projections. Approximately 17 vessels docked at the central hub, with another 5 patrolling the perimeter. Alex studied the tactical display, where the Earthcrex fleet was represented by blue markers arranged in a three-dimensional assault formation. 6 human vessels, including the Adaptable, formed the center, while 12 Krex warships created a protective screen around them. Any indication they've detected us? He asked. Negative, Colonel, Volkov replied. Our adaptive stealth systems are functioning as designed. As far as we can tell, they remain unaware of our presence. Alex nodded, then turned to the figure standing beside his command chair. Assessment Hunt Leader. Schrichter's 6 amber eyes narrowed as he studied the display. The Vex are confident. Their defensive posture is minimal. They do not expect attack in what they consider secure territory. Perfect, Alex said with a grim smile. Fleet status. All vessels report ready, Colonel, announced Lieutenant Sato from the communication station. The Krex dreadnought inevitable hunt signals they are in position and awaiting your command. Alex took a deep breath, acutely aware of the historical significance of the moment. Humanity's first major interstellar military operation, the first true test of the Earth-Krex alliance, and potentially the beginning of the end for the Vex incursion. Open a channel to all ships, he ordered. When Sato acknowledged confirmation, Alex spoke, his voice clear and steady. All vessels, this is Colonel Reeves. In approximately 5 minutes, We will execute Operation Calculated Risk against the Vex installation. This is not merely a strike mission. It is a statement, to both our allies and our enemies, that humanity has taken its place among the stars." He paused, glancing at Schrichter, who bobbed his massive head in approval. "We face an enemy that has confounded the Concord for decades," Alex continued. "An enemy that relies on unpredictability, on terror, on the assumption that their biology and technology are beyond our understanding. Today, we prove them wrong." Another pause, allowing his words to sink in across the fleet. "Earth vessels will target the central hub, using the modified phase disruptors developed from Krek's technology. Krek's warships will engage the patrol vessels and any reinforcements that attempt to respond. Remember your training. Remember the patterns we've identified in Vex behavior. And remember that today, we hunt together." He met Schrichter's gaze. As the Kreks would say, "May your strikes be true and your prey worthy." The massive predator made that now familiar rumbling laugh. "The human learns our ways well. All ships, move to attack positions," Alex commanded. "Execute on my mark." The fleet began to move, sliding out of the concealment provided by the moon's magnetic shadow. On a tactical display, the blue markers separated into their assigned groups, each following the carefully choreographed approach vectors that had been calculated to exploit the Vex installation's structural weaknesses. "Weapon status?" Alex asked. "Phase disruptors at full charge," Volkov reported. "Targeting locked on the central processing node as identified in the intelligence briefing. Krek's vessels report ready. All weapons hot," added Sato. Alex watched the tactical display, waiting for the precise moment when all ships reached their optimal firing positions, the plan relying on simultaneity. All weapons fired at once to overwhelm the Vex adaptive defenses before they could analyze and counter the attack. "Mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Execute." Across the fleet, weapons discharged in perfect synchronization. The adaptable shuddered slightly as its phase disruptors released their energy, sending cascading waves of destructive force toward the heart of the Vex installation. On the main view screen, the effect was immediate and devastating. The Vex structure seemed to collapse in on itself where the phase disruptors struck, its biomechanical hybrid materials unable to adapt quickly enough to the unfamiliar energy pattern. Simultaneously, the Krek's warships tore into the patrol vessels with ruthless efficiency, their weapons specifically calibrated to exploit weaknesses discovered during previous engagements. "Direct hit on primary target," Volkov announced, unable to keep the excitement from his voice. Structural integrity of the central hub compromised by approximately 60%. Krek's forces report 4 enemy vessels destroyed, 2 disabled, added Sato. "No casualties on our side." Alex leaned forward in his command chair. "Status of the remaining Vex vessels?" "They're confused," Volkov said, studying his sensors. "Energy signatures are fluctuating. They appear to be attempting to adapt their defenses, but the multiphasic nature of our attack is preventing them from establishing a coherent response." "Just as we predicted," Alex murmured. The key insight from his encounter with the Vex scout vessel had been expanded into an entire combat doctrine, exploiting the mathematical patterns underlying Vex adaptive technology by introducing deliberate, controlled chaos into the attack sequence. "Second volley ready," reported Volkov. "Fire again." The fleet weapons discharged in unison, this time targeting secondary nodes throughout the Vex installation. The effect was even more pronounced than the first volley, with entire sections of the alien structure breaking apart and drifting into space. "They're launching vessels," Sato called out, multiple signatures detaching from the installation. "Not attacking. They're withdrawing," Schrichter observed, his rumbling voice conveying satisfaction. "They cannot adapt quickly enough, so they withdraw to analyze and evolve." "Not this time," Alex said grimly. "Implement containment protocol. Don't let them escape with data on our weapon systems." Across the fleet, secondary weapon arrays activated, targeting the fleeing Vex vessels with specialized electromagnetic pulses that scrambled their navigation systems. The Krek's warships moved with predatory grace, cutting off escape vectors and herding the disoriented Vex ships back toward the disintegrating installation. Containment at 83%. Volkov reported, 3 vessels have broken through the perimeter, but the rest are trapped. The Krek's dreadnought is engaging the escapees, Sato added. Huntmaster Relac reports they will not reach Vex space with functional data storage. Alex nodded, watching as the operation unfolded exactly as planned. The Vex installation was collapsing, its defenders trapped or destroyed, and the few escapees being hunted down by the fastest Krek's vessels. It was by any standard a complete success. Begin recovery operations, he ordered. I want sample teams deployed to secure any intact Vex technology before the entire structure breaks apart. Priority on command nodes and data storage systems. As the bridge crew rushed to implement his orders, Schrichter moved closer to Alex's command chair. The human strategy was sound, the massive Kreks said quietly. The Vex did not anticipate an attack pattern based on controlled mathematical chaos. Fighting disorder with disorder, Alex replied, but not random disorder. Calculated unpredictability. A paradox the Vex could not resolve in time. Schrichter's 6 eyes blinked in that sequential pattern that Alex had come to recognize as approval. The Krek's packs are impressed, Colonel. This victory will resonate across the Concord. It's just the beginning, Alex said, rising from his chair to stand beside the towering predator. The real test will come when the Vex adapt to this strategy. And they will adapt, eventually. Of course, Schrichter agreed. That is the nature of predator and prey. An eternal dance of adaptation and counter-adaptation. Then we'd better keep them guessing, Alex smiled grimly. Humanity has a long history of coming up with new and creative ways to fight. It's probably our most developed skill as a species. A skill the Concord needs, the Kreks rumbled, more than they have yet realized. Together, they watched on the view screen as the Vex installation continued to break apart, its eerie light fading as its power systems failed. Shuttles from the adaptable and other Earth vessels converged on the wreckage, protected by Krek's fighter escorts, as they began the delicate work of recovery. Valuable intelligence, Alex reflected, a perfect symbol of the new alliance. Human adaptability and problem-solving supported by Krek's strength and predatory instinct. Together, they had achieved what neither could have accomplished alone. And somewhere in the vast darkness beyond Concord space, the main body of the Vex Collective would soon receive news of this defeat. They would analyze. They would adapt. They would prepare new defenses against this unexpected threat. But for the first time since their incursions began, they would also experience something new. Uncertainty. The knowledge that their assumed superiority had been challenged, that their adaptive advantages had been countered, that their prey had suddenly revealed itself to be a predator in its own right. Vex recovery teams report finding intact data nodes. Volkov announced, breaking into Alex's thoughts. Initial analysis suggests we've captured significant intelligence on Vex communication protocols. Excellent, Alex replied. Transmit the findings to the Krek's flagship for their technical teams to examine as well. As the bridge crew continued coordinating the recovery operation, Alex's data tablet chimed with an incoming transmission. The identification code indicated it was from Earth, specifically from a Security Council. I need to take this, he told Schrichter. Probably the Council wants a preliminary report on our success. The massive Kreks made that rumbling laughing sound. Politicians, always eager to claim the kill without joining the hunt. Some things are universal, it seems, Alex said with a wry smile before stepping away to take the call. The face that appeared on his tablet wasn't one of the Security Council members, however, but Admiral Walsh. Colonel, she greeted, her expression carefully neutral. I've been monitoring the operation from Earth Command. Impressive work. Thank you, Admiral. The Joint Fleet performed exactly as expected. We've destroyed the Vex installation and are currently recovering intelligence materials. Walsh nodded. The Security Council is pleased with the outcome, as are our Krek's allies, judging by the communications we've received from their leadership. Something in her tone made Alex pause. But There are concerns about the broader implications. Walsh looked off-screen briefly before continuing. The Concord Diplomatic Corps has registered what they're calling reservations about the scale and nature of the operation. Reservations? Alex repeated. We just eliminated a major Vex forward base that threatened multiple Concord worlds. What possible reservations could they have? Officially, concerns about escalation, about channels of authorization, about probationary species prematurely taking military initiative. Walsh's expression hardened slightly. Unofficially, you've just demonstrated that Earthcrex is far more effective against the Vex than anything the Concord has managed in decades. That makes certain factions uncomfortable. They'd rather face the Vex alone than accept help from newcomers. So, they're feeling threatened by our effectiveness, Alex surmised. Something like that. The established power structures within the Concord are being challenged, Colonel. Your success today has only accelerated that process. Alex considered this, thinking back to his earliest interactions with the various Concord species. The condescension, the dismissiveness, the barely concealed contempt for humanity's primitive state. Let them be uncomfortable, he said finally. Results speak for themselves. Walsh smiled thinly. Indeed they do, which is why, despite the diplomatic hand-wringing, the Security Council has authorized Phase 2 of the operation, a counter-incursion into Vex territory. Yes, using the intelligence you recover from this installation, you're to plan and execute a limited probe into what we believe to be Vex-controlled space. The objective remains intelligence gathering rather than direct confrontation, but you're authorized to engage if necessary. Alex nodded slowly. The Krex will be pleased. They've been advocating for a more aggressive stance since the beginning. Just remember where your ultimate loyalties lie, Colonel, Walsh said, her voice dropping. The Krex are valuable allies, but Earth's interests come first. Of course, Admiral. Good hunting, then. Earth Command out. As the transmission ended, Alex stared at the blank screen for a moment, considering Walsh's warning. The Admiral wasn't wrong to be cautious. The Krex were certainly pursuing their own agenda within this alliance. But for now, at least, that agenda aligned with humanity's interests. He returned to the bridge to find Schrichter coordinating with the Krex vessels via a separate communication channel. The massive predator acknowledged his return with a slight inclination of his head. Your leaders are pleased? He asked. Very, Alex confirmed. They've authorized the next phase of operations, a probe into Vex territory. All 6 of Schrichter's eyes brightened slightly. The humans show courage. The Dominion will be impressed. We're not doing it to impress anyone, Alex said. We're doing it because it's necessary. The best defense is understanding your enemy. And to understand the Vex, we need to see where they came from, how they live. Hunt the hunter in its own territory, Schrichter rumbled approvingly. A dangerous strategy, but potentially rewarding. Exactly. Alex turned his attention back to the tactical display, where the recovery operation was proceeding slowly. Once we've analyzed what we've recovered here, we'll begin planning the incursion. The massive Krex studied him with those unsettling amber eyes. You have changed since our first meeting, human. Grown into your role as a hunter among the stars. Alex smiled slightly. I've had good teachers. The best, Schrichter agreed with that rumbling laugh. And now, together, we will show the Vex and the Concord what true predators can accomplish when they hunt as one. As if to punctuate his words, the remains of the Vex installation chose that moment to finally collapse completely, the last of its eerie light fading to darkness. On the tactical display, the recovery teams were already returning to their ships, their mission accomplished, while the Krex vessels maintained a protective screen around the fleet. It was, Alex thought, a fitting image for this new chapter in humanity's story among the stars. Not the peaceful exploration many had envisioned, but a necessary alliance of predators against a common threat. An alliance that had just proved its worth in the most emphatic way possible. And as for those within the Concord who had mocked humanity's size, who had dismissed Earth as primitive and trivial, they would quickly learn what the Vex had discovered today. That true predators came in all shapes and sizes, and that sometimes the most dangerous hunter was the one you never saw coming, until it was too late. The future forged. 6 months after the destruction of the Vex forward operating base, Alex stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned Earth diplomatic vessel Understanding, watching as the gleaming towers of the Concord capital world, Harmonious Accord, spread out below. The massive cityscape covered nearly half the planet's surface, a testament to thousands of years of interstellar cooperation and technological advancement. And now humanity had a permanent place within it. "Quite a view, isn't it?" came a familiar voice. Alex turned to find Dr. Eliza Morgan, Earth's newly appointed ambassador to the Concord, approaching with a data tablet tucked under her arm. Unlike her predecessors, who had been career diplomats with little understanding of military matters, Morgan had been selected specifically for her background in both xenobiology and strategic planning. "Impressive," Alex agreed, "though I've been told the Krex consider it unnecessarily ornate and lacking in functional defense considerations." Morgan laughed. "They would. I had dinner with the Krex diplomatic delegation yesterday. They spent 20 minutes explaining why the transparent dome over the council chamber is a tactical vulnerability that no sensible predator would tolerate." "They're not wrong," Alex pointed out. "One well-placed rogue strike, and the entire Concord leadership would be exposed to vacuum." "Don't let the Security Council hear you say that," Morgan cautioned, though her tone remained light. "They're already nervous enough about your overly close relationship with the Krex." Alex shrugged. "It's that overly close relationship that secured us a permanent seat on the Defense Committee and fast-tracked our full membership application, among other things." Morgan agreed, activating her data tablet, which brings me to why I asked to meet before the ceremony. The final treaty text has been approved by both the Concord High Council and Earth Security Council. She handed him the tablet, which displayed a document titled Treaty of Mutual Defense and Technological Exchange between the Galactic Concord and Earth. The official seals of both governments were prominently displayed at the top. "It's really happening then," Alex said, scrolling through the document. "Full membership a decade ahead of schedule. Unrestricted technological exchange in designated sectors. And formal recognition of the Joint Defense Initiative. All thanks to your successes against the Vex," Morgan confirmed. 3 major installations destroyed, 2 forward incursions repelled, and intelligence that's revolutionized our understanding of their biology and technology. The Concord couldn't ignore results like that, no matter how much certain factions might have preferred to keep Earth in a subordinate position. Alex handed the tablet back. "And the Krex? How do they feel about Earth's accelerated integration?" "Officially, they're our strongest advocates on the Council. Zarkethel personally lobbied for the expanded technology sharing provisions." Morgan's expression turned thoughtful. "Unofficially, they're playing a longer game than we can fully grasp. The Alliance benefits them as much as it does us. Maybe more, in ways we don't yet understand. They need us," Alex said simply, "just as we need them. The Vex threat is real and growing. Neither species can face it alone." "True enough," Morgan added, looking at her chronometer. "The ceremony begins in 30 minutes. As the military architect of our new status, you're expected to be front and center alongside the diplomatic team." Alex nodded, adjusting the formal dress uniform he'd been required to wear for the occasion. As a full colonel now, with additional diplomatic credentials as the official military liaison to the Krex Dominion, his presence at the treaty signing was more than ceremonial. It was symbolic of the new relationship between Earth and the wider galactic community. "I'll be there," he assured her, "though I'd much rather be preparing for the next operation." Morgan smiled knowingly. "The incursion into the Vex home system? I've seen the preliminary plans. Ambitious doesn't begin to describe it." "Necessary," Alex corrected. "We've pushed them back temporarily, but they're regrouping. The only way to end this threat permanently is to understand where they came from and why they're expanding. Just be careful, Colonel. You've become something of a hero back on Earth. The man who put humanity on the galactic map. It will be a shame to lose you on some high-risk mission into unknown territory." "Risk is part of the job description," Alex replied with a slight smile. "Except I won't be alone. Schrichter's hunt pack has already volunteered to lead the expedition. Of course they have, Morgan vocalized. Just remember that diplomatic relations are as important as military victories. Today's ceremony represents years of work by people who never fired a shot or commanded a fleet. I understand, Ambassador. I'll be on my best behavior. As Morgan departed to make final preparations for the ceremony, Alex turned back to the viewport, his thoughts drifting to how far humanity had come in such a short time, from being mocked as primitive newcomers to being celebrated as valuable allies. All because of a chance encounter with a Vex scout ship and a pattern that only a human mind had recognized. The door to the observation deck slid open again, but this time the visitor was far more imposing. Zarkethel, primary voice of the Crex Dominion, had to duck his massive head to enter the human scale chamber. "You are preparing for the human ceremony?" The enormous predator rumbled. Despite their months of working together, Alex still felt a primal thrill of both fear and respect whenever he was alone with one of the Crex, especially one as powerful as Zarkethel. It was, he suspected, an evolutionary response that no amount of rational thought could entirely suppress. "Just gathering my thoughts," he replied. "It's been a remarkable journey." Zarkethel moved to stand beside him at the viewport, those 6 amber eyes studying the cityscape below. From prey to predator in the eyes of the Concord. Few species have made such a transition so rapidly. "We had help," Alex acknowledged. "The Crex Alliance made it possible. Do not underestimate your own contributions, Colonel. The Crex recognized potential, but you proved its reality." Zarkethel's massive head turned towards him. "The treaty being signed today is merely the beginning. What follows will reshape the Concord for millennia to come." There was something in the Crex leader's tone that caught Alex's attention, a hint of something beyond the usual predatory pragmatism. "What do you mean?" he asked carefully. Zarkethel's 6 eyes blinked in that familiar sequential pattern. "The Vex are not the only threat to galactic stability, human. They're merely the most immediate. The Concord has grown complacent over centuries of relative peace. Species that evolve without challenge become weak. And you believe humanity and the Crex represent that challenge? A way to shake things up?" "Exactly." The massive predator turned back to the viewport. "The established powers within the Concord fear change. They prefer stagnation to evolution, safety to growth. But the universe does not reward such thinking. Only adaptation ensures survival." Alex considered this carefully. He'd suspected from the beginning that the Crex had motives beyond simple military alliance. But this was the first time Zarkethel had spoken so directly about longer-term ambitions. "And after the Vex?" he asked. "What then?" "Then the real work begins," Zarkethel replied. "Reforming the Concord from within. Creating a new order that values strength, adaptability, and innovation, rather than tradition and consensus. With the Crex and humans at its center," Alex concluded. "At its vanguard," the primary voice corrected. "Leading by example rather than decree. The predator does not need to proclaim its status. It demonstrates it through action." It was a vision both compelling and unsettling. A fundamental reshaping of galactic politics, driven by an alliance of apex predators. And yet, wasn't that exactly what Earth had hoped for when it first looked to the stars? A chance to make its mark, to influence the course of interstellar civilization, rather than simply joining as a junior partner? "The ceremony awaits," Zarkethel rumbled, interrupting Alex's thoughts. "The official beginning of our partnership in the eyes of the Concord." As they moved toward the exit, the Crex's massive head paused, those 6 amber eyes fixing on Alex with that unsettling intensity. "Remember this moment, human," he said quietly. "When they dismissed your size, when they mocked your potential, when they treated your species as primitive curiosities rather than equals. Remember, and know that soon they will kneel before the alliance we have forged, not through conquest, but through necessity." With that, the primary voice ducked through the doorway, leaving Alex to follow in his wake, mind racing with the implications of what he'd just heard. The end. The ceremony itself was everything one would expect from a civilization that had perfected diplomatic pageantry over thousands of years. The Great Hall of Harmony was packed with representatives from all 27, soon to be 28, member species of the Galactic Concord, holographic displays projecting the proceedings to billions of beings across thousands of worlds. Alex stood on the central platform alongside Ambassador Morgan and the rest of the Earth delegation, acutely aware of the historical significance of the moment. Opposite them, the Concord High Council members were arranged according to ancient protocols of precedence, with Zarkethel of the Krex and the other founding species representatives in the positions of highest honor. Supreme Commander Levshura, his quills of formal gray, stepped forward to address the assembly. Esteemed representatives of the Galactic Concord, he began, his voice amplified throughout the vast chamber. Today marks a historic evolution in our collective journey among the stars. The species known as humans, having demonstrated exceptional valor and innovation in the defense of Concord space, will be formally recognized as the 28th member of our ancient alliance. Murmurs rippled through the assembly, most approving, though Alex noted a few representatives whose body language suggested less enthusiasm. Furthermore, Levshura continued, in recognition of humanity's unique contributions to our defense against the Vex incursion, Earth will be granted immediate representation on the Defense Committee and accelerated access to designated technological sectors previously restricted to full members. More murmurs, louder this time. Such privileges for a species so recently contacted were unprecedented, a fact everyone in the chamber understood all too well. Ambassador Morgan stepped forward to accept the formal charter of membership, her expression appropriately solemn despite the triumph the moment represented. On behalf of Earth and all humanity, she declared, we accept with gratitude and humility the responsibilities and privileges of Concord membership. We pledge to uphold the principles of cooperation and mutual defense that have sustained this alliance for millennia, while contributing our unique perspective to its continued evolution. The formal words, carefully crafted to acknowledge tradition while hinting at change, were met with polite applause. As Morgan continued with the diplomatic niceties, Alex found his attention drawn to Zarkethel, whose massive form seemed to radiate quiet satisfaction, the Krex's characteristically impassive expression. When the ceremony concluded, representatives from various Concord species approached the Earth delegation to offer congratulations. Some were genuinely welcoming, others merely observing diplomatic protocol. Alex noted with interest that several of the lower-tier species were particularly enthusiastic, evidence of Morgan's earlier comment about shifting political alignments. Colonel Reeves called a familiar voice. Alex turned to find Thexelon approaching, his quills a formal diplomatic blue. Congratulations on your species elevation. A remarkable achievement in such a short time. Thank you, Ambassador, Alex replied. Much of the credit belongs to the diplomatic corps. How diplomatic of you to say so, Thexelon said with what might have been irony. His quills shifted slightly toward green, though we both know the true catalyst for this accelerated process. The Vex threat required a response, Alex said simply. Earth was in a position to help provide it. Indeed, the ambassador's quills rippled thoughtfully. And now that Earth is a full member of the Concord, how do you see your role evolving? Will you continue to focus exclusively on military matters, or might you consider a more balanced approach to galactic affairs? The question was delivered casually, but Alex recognized the probing nature of the inquiry. Thexelon, and by extension the moderate factions within the Concord, were concerned about the growing Earth-Krex alliance and what it might mean for the existing power structure. I go where I'm needed, Ambassador, he replied carefully. For now, that means continuing to coordinate our defense against the Vex. But Earth's interests extend beyond military concerns. Of course, Thexelon agreed, though his quills betrayed his skepticism. I merely observe that alliances formed in wartime sometimes overemphasize certain aspects of interspecies relations at the expense of others. You're concerned about our relationship with the Krex, Alex said directly, seeing no point in diplomatic evasion with someone as perceptive as Thexelon. The ambassador's quills flattened slightly, surprised at his bluntness. Perhaps. The Kreks are valued founding members of the Concord, he said carefully, but their perspective on galactic governance has historically been focused on certain priorities that not all member species share. Strength, adaptability, and decisive action, Alex replied. Among other things, Thexelon acknowledged. These qualities have their place, particularly in times of crisis. But the Concord has thrived for millennia through consideration of diverse perspectives and balance. And you're worried that balance might be shifting, Alex said. The ambassador's quills rippled in what might have been resignation. Change is inevitable, Colonel. The question is whether that change strengthens the whole or merely elevates a part at the expense of the rest. Before Alex could respond, a diplomatic aide approached to inform Thexelon that his presence was requested elsewhere. The ambassador bobbed his head in farewell, his quills settling back into a formal blue. Something to consider, Colonel, as you plan your next moves against the Vex and beyond, he said quietly before departing. Alex watched him go, turning the conversation over in his mind. Thexelon wasn't wrong to be concerned. The rapid rise of Earth within the Concord hierarchy, backed by the Kreks and other species who favored a more assertive approach to galactic security, represented a significant shift in the balance of power that had existed for centuries. Deep thoughts, Colonel, came another familiar voice, this one belonging to Vexner, who had apparently observed the exchange from a discreet distance. Just considering different perspectives on our new status, Alex replied. The Kreks made that rumbling sound of amusement. The Kaldari fear change. It is their nature to seek consensus and stability above all else. And it's the Kreks' nature to seek challenge and evolution, Alex countered. Both approaches have their merits. Indeed, which is why our alliance is so powerful. Vexner's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. The human provides balance to Kreks' aggression. The Kreks provides strength to human adaptability. Together, we represent something the Concord has not seen in millennia, a truly new approach to the challenges of this galaxy. Alex considered this. Ambassador Morgan believes the Kreks are playing a longer game than we fully understand. Your ambassador is perceptive, Vexner acknowledged, but perhaps not as perceptive as you, human. You have hunted with us. You understand what drives a predator, the need to survive, to protect territory, to ensure the continuation of the species. Yes, and what threatens those imperatives more than the Vex? Nothing immediate, Alex admitted. But after the Vex, what then? Vexner's massive head tilted slightly. Then we face the greater challenge, ensuring the Concord evolves rather than calcifies. A challenge better discussed after our more pressing hunt is concluded. The conversation was interrupted by a discreet notification on Alex's communicator, a priority message from Earth Command. Duty calls, he said, glancing at the device. The preliminary briefing for Operation Deep Strike has been moved up. The hunt continues, Vexner observed with satisfaction. We will speak more of these matters after today's ceremonies are completed. As the Kreks moved away, Alex found himself once again considering the complex web of alliances and agendas that now surrounded Earth's position in the Concord. What had begun as a simple military necessity, cooperation against the Vex, had evolved into something far more significant, a potential reshaping of galactic politics with humanity in a pivotal role. But first, they had to survive the immediate threat. The Vex were regrouping, adapting to the tactics that had proven successful in earlier engagements. Operation Deep Strike, a direct incursion into what intelligence suggested might be the Vex home system, represented their most ambitious and dangerous mission yet. With a last glance around the Great Hall of Harmony, with its soaring architecture and ancient symbols of Concord unity, Alex made his way toward the exit. Speeches had their place, but the real work waited elsewhere, in the darkness between the stars, where the future of not just humanity, but all Concord species would ultimately be decided, not by speeches or treaties, but by the actions of those who hunt the hunters. The end.